What is up, everyone? This is the Tesla Beat podcast. And we are at it another week, never a dull moment in this community. And, just always something going on, but we are here to keep you updated each week. So first off, thank you for tuning in. And just a quick look at the stock, as we always do. Funny enough, Google year-to-date trend chart was not working, so I used Yahoo Finance to save the day. But last week it was roughly around 170. It's back up to 178 this week, down. I think year to date it's still roughly down, close to about 30%. But yeah, so I think going on to the next slide. So I don't know if you are in the Tesla community and you're on X, you can just see the community is very divided right now. And I was actually talking, I think it was about with Alexandra and Joe before Jeff, you came in, and it really feels like the sentiment about this vote for the shareholder vote. Like, I don't think we've ever had to worry about getting enough votes, one or two, where the vote was going to go. I mean, everyone has been very much in favor of, everything that's been put in front of the shareholders. But it really does feel like this upcoming vote is not even about what Elon has accomplished and what Tesla has done. It is about how people feel about him, which is probably the stupidest thing when it comes to a plan that was drawn up 6-7 years ago. And no one thought in 2018 that this was like the dumbest thing that, anyone would sign up for. And so, it is really sad to see just how the community has become very divided and people are taking one side or the other. And it's not even about what has Elon done and where is Tesla and potentially even where are they going. It's very much what has Elon, said on X. What is he, where is he spending his time? Like, it has nothing to do about what this company has accomplished over the past 6 years. But I would love to get everyone's perspective. Like, so before we get into, some of the stuff we heard from this morning, shout out to Sawyer for breaking the news. I believe she did an interview with the Financial Times, or she just did an interview this morning. So there's some stuff that came out of that. And then Alexandra is going to give us a breakdown of how you, the voter, the shareholder, can get involved. Your voice needs to be heard more than ever. So we're going to get into that. But, let's just get into, what have you been seeing? What are your thoughts on this upcoming vote? I mean, again, we've drawn this out, but again, we're seeing Google advertising happening now. I mean, we're seeing emails going out. We're seeing it really, you can really see that the crunch is now, right? And I think, as Robin was mentioning, Mount Everest. So what have you been seeing? What's been on top of mind as far as, this shareholder, voting that's coming up on June 14th?
Joe,
you want me to take the lead, Joe?
Yeah, I can go ahead, Alexandra, because I like coming after you. What
sure.
you have to say?
So to tell everybody, we still have 4 weeks to vote, right? You can vote until June 12th. Some of the overseas brokers break it down to June 10th because they have to bring the results in. So we still have a bit of time, but we need every single vote. Why is that? So we're voting on 12 different subjects, out of which question number 2 and 3 are the most important. Number 2 is reinstating Elon's compensation package, and number 3 is redomesticating the company away from Delaware into Texas. So those 2 questions are crucial for the future of Tesla. And in my view, the Texas question is even more important because once we are in Texas, lots of other things will be possible that are currently not possible in Delaware. The proxy statement of about 500 pages, everybody can read it. It's available on the SEC website, but also on the investor relations part of Tesla's website. And if somebody doesn't have the link, please reach out to me. I'm most happy to send you the link. So that's the first important part. The second thing is that a lot of brokers and banks are not proactive in letting you know that you can vote. So we've set up a hashtag called hashtag voted Tesla24, where we keep everybody updated on the progress we see from different banks. People contact their brokers, and then the broker gives them instructions, tells them what happens. They share it with us. We put it on voted Tesla24 with the name of the bank. You can actually search the hashtag. So if you put in the search function hashtag voted Tesla24 and then in the name of your broker, you will find the Fidelity instructions, or you will find the Vanguard instructions and all that. So that is important as a first step to know how to vote. Please vote, and do know you have to vote for each account separately. So if you have Tesla in 3 accounts at 1 broker, at 3 brokers, you will have to vote 3 times. So don't oversee that. Don't think because you voted once that all your shares are voted. The vote is per share. So if you have 1,000 shares, that counts 1,000. If you have 10,000 shares, that counts 10,000. If you have 1 share, that counts 1. So it's really important you think about every account where you have Tesla, where your children have a Tesla, where your spouse has friends, parents, whoever. Please mobilize these people so that they look into this and vote for each account. Then the next thing that people have to see is when they invest in index funds, with Fidelity or QQQ, whatever, Vanguard, State Street, they usually give away their voting rights because now they have shares of a fund or ETF, but not anymore of Tesla. But these fund managers have huge power, right? Vanguard, State Street, Fidelity, Geode, BlackRock, they are the biggest institutional investors in Tesla. 4, 5, 6, 7%. So these people need to know that we're watching what they're doing, because people actually ignore that the way they vote is then published on the SEC website, cert with a certain delay, but we will in the end know how they voted, and we know how they voted in past years. So I've set up in my pinned post, go my profile, just the first one, how to go about that. So there are 2 instructions. The ones that have their index equity funds with State Street can contact State Street to say, I want to vote my share myself. They can do so. And State Street has one option that says, I want to vote like the board recommends. That is what I would like you to recommend to you to choose. And that way you have your State Street index equity funds votes yourself, but you have to proactively go there. Vanguard has 5 index equity funds, out of which 4 hold Tesla, for which they proposed the same service. So Vanguard is a smaller solution, but there's still 4 of the biggest funds for which you can reclaim your voting rights. So please go on voted Tesla24 Vanguard and see which are those funds, and if you have those shares, reclaim your votes. And then for all the others that don't propose that you can reclaim your votes, write them an email. I've prepared it all, email addresses, letter, what to say to them, and say, look, we're watching. You will have to publish what you're voting, and I will decide later on with whom I leave my funds, because I want you to vote how the board recommends. There are some big ones out there, like T. Rowe Price, who already said they would like the board on these questions. So you have options. These index equity funds, they're all the same, no matter which of the shops you decide to use. So don't stay with a shop that is against Tesla. That's what I'm trying to say. It's too late for this vote. And that's the other message I want to hammer today is, you may not be able to vote for this vote just because you were not organized for the 15th of April, or you didn't know your broker wasn't organized for it, or you had these funds in ETFs that won't give you the voting rights or won't respect your vote. But there are many more votes to come in the next 24 months. This is clear already. No matter how this goes, there's much more to be decided by shareholders. So get organized now. If you're with a broker that doesn't give you the right to vote, move your shares somewhere else. Learn from the ones that explain to us how in Europe, how in Scandinavia, Switzerland, whatever, they can now vote because they push their brokers to finally make it possible. These are the names you may want to consider to move your shares to, because there will be, I think, even this year, more votes to come, certainly next year and certainly the year after. So what we're going through at the moment shouldn't be as painful anymore. And then to get back to the Financial Times, I'm sorry, I'm just blubbering this through, but there's so much to be said. To get back to the Financial Times article from this morning, there is a huge information there that really scares me. So I want to wake everybody up. Your every vote means something. Why? For the compensation package from Elon, the denominator for the calculation of how much this vote was accepted or not is the participating voters. Okay, so let's say a billion shares have been voted, and 700 million were for, so it's a 70% acceptance rate, right? Because it's given to the number of votes that have voted. But for the Texas decision, it is the pool of all outstanding outstanding shares. So there we are over 3 billion shares. And now we have to make sure that at least half of those vote, and all of those then had to vote for Texas. So this is a huge task to make sure that for Texas to be the new domicile for Tesla Corp, more than half of the outstanding shares, not the voters, but all outstanding shares, have to vote for it. So this is the steepest hill there is. And that's why I say every single vote counts, especially since both Elon and Kimball are not allowed to vote on these two questions. So we're already going in with a 13% handicap. So there we are. And I asked John, Joe, and Jeff. Oh my gosh, you all start with G today. I didn't realize. I asked John, Joe, and Jeff to please excuse me now, because I want to go back on X and just help everybody to find how they can vote. I'll be back, well, not next week, because John and me are in Flachau in Austria next week for the Tesla takeover in Europe. But I'll be back soon after that, and I'll be obviously on X all the time. And thank you all for helping me make this happen.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Alexandra, for all you're doing. I mean, you are one of the loudest people right now on this, and one of the most knowledgeable people, given your background, and it's much needed. So I've definitely been doing my best to repost a lot of your stuff, because it's very important that the people are aware of what is at stake, not only, but the importance of just making sure that our voices are heard.
Great.
Yeah, I think the lack of awareness around what people could do and should do around the voting was a problem, which is why I think we saw so much advertising. I think it just became really evident to them that there was a lot of unknowns, that people just figured that whoever they were with would vote the way that they wanted, and that's not the case, as we see with Alexandra. You have to speak your piece.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, Jeff, you want to go?
Yeah, no, I think the information is critical. I just want to say, I asked people on X, including one of the largest shareholders that actually follows me, who says they're voting against this, and I didn't get an answer. Just like, what is the other side of this look like for you? Like, if you vote against this plan, like what do you propose next, and how does the company prosper after that no vote? And I don't get an answer. And then sometimes I see people debating, and I think you started the show off, John, just saying, hey, look, there's definitely a split on this in a lot of the community. And the question I would ask the community is, first off, I'm not going to force you or tell you or shame you of how to vote one way or another, but just what does the other side of the vote look like for you? If you get like what you want, like what does that actually look like? Show me like, envision for me like what that looks like. And then the next question I get is, well, did you read the agreement or the settlement from the judge? Did you read the judge's statement on the whole thing? I'm like, yeah, I did. I'm not a lawyer, you're not a lawyer, but I've read many contracts, and there was a deal made here, and you could, with a set of lawyers, you could go in and try to undo any contract anywhere in the world, and maybe a 2 or 3 times out of 100 you're going to be successful. I think if this were put up in front of 100 different judges or 100 different situations, I would have to say that most legal minds believe that this is a pretty kind of rare ruling, the way that it goes. And like, are we going to review the compensation plans of 100 different CEOs, and how do they come up, how are they contrived, and how are they put together? And So it doesn't seem linear. It doesn't seem fair. I'm all for the law. I'm all for looking into these things. But now, we have a chance on the other side of this to say, all right, basically 6 years ago or so, there was a plan to 10x the company, and someone's compensation plan, the leader of the CEO of the company, was their entire compensation was based off of it. And now we come back. Now we're 6 years later, and the company has 10x'd. And the question is if you don't like a certain way something was done or said, but at the end, like the highest order bit, like the results are there, and that's, and I don't think, going back to my analogy of, if you tried this thing 100 times, would you get the same result 100 times? I think absolutely not. It's the same thing of like if you put 100 different CEOs in that situation and says you've got 4 years or so to 10x your company, are you going to do it? I don't think Elon could do it. 100 times out of 100. I think it'd be a very rare for even him to do it. I don't think anybody else could do it. And so anyway, it's for me, it comes back to what does the other side of the company look like, and what company do you want to invest in, follow, be a part, and what do you want like for the world, for humanity on the other side of this? And so I think it's an important vote. And I hope everybody, reads the proxy material, reads everything, and understands exactly what they're voting for, and understand like what are the consequences of your vote. And I think that's, for me, the most important thing. What does it look like based on your vote on the other side of the vote? And don't just vote out of spite or so forth. If you made a deal on something, for your job or something you're doing, and you delivered those results, what would you be expecting on the other side of that? So anyway, I'm kind of rambling, but anyway, those are just my thoughts.
No, I think the rambling's fun. I think, I called Joe earlier this week, and we probably spent like 30 minutes just hashing out and taking some bat swings at, the possibilities of what is on the other end of this. And more important, we could spend all day thinking about what Elon's thinking or how he already feels, no matter what the outcome is. But yeah, I think it is probably, I think it's very helpful that Robin, the board, the chief of staff, as far as the board goes, it's helpful that she's even sharing some of this information, because I did not know that you need 50% to move to Delaware, or out of Delaware to Texas. That makes sense why everyone's, why they're spending money on this. I think without that information, and this is where, I do feel like Tesla could step up. And this has, been, a complaint probably for all these years in general, is just speaking up more, right? I think people need to know, even just simple tweets and to a link. Hey, your voice matters. If you're a shareholder, go to this website, and just stating why. For us to leave Delaware, you need to vote. We need 50%, like just simple. And I don't know if they can. I assume they can, but I think this is where, they should be using every platform that they have access to, that they need to be notifying people. It's just simple. They can create a 30-second reel that just says, hey, shareholder, Tesla owner, if you just, this is how you get involved. And again, I don't know what they can and can't do, but I would assume they can get pretty vocal about some of the stuff, especially if they're spending advertising dollars on shareholder. But yeah, I think there's just a lack of information right now, because I was telling, the four of us with Alexandra were having a conversation. It's like, there's never been a vote like this where we doubted how much, or we doubted, the board's recommendations, or more importantly, I don't know when the last time Alexandra or even Amy would have been a great person to ask, when was the last time 50% of the vote was ever required, if ever? And so, it is really sad to see that that this is the vote about what has been accomplished from 2018 is whether or not how you feel politically about Elon. And it's just, unfortunately, that's where the culture is right now. It's very, not to get on my pedestal, but like that's, we're just very much not, we don't really celebrate successes. We celebrate failures, and we live for, when someone falls, we are right there to hit them with the bat. You know what I'm saying? Like metaphorically speaking, we're ready there to pounce on them. And I think that you're seeing that, and that's ultimately, for the longest time, I feel like, Elon and Tesla has actually played into them succeeding, because every time that they were like Tesla and fraud and Tesla going bankrupt, like they would sell more cars. I think you are seeing that stark polarization kind of coming to a head right now, where but yeah, again, I don't want to go down too much this rabbit hole, but it is really sad to see, we are having, discussions based on one's political view, not on what they've accomplished. And sure, the person has become, they've always been vocal, but maybe more vocal on X ever since they obviously bought the platform, Elon specifically. But, what he has done for renewable transportation, renewable energy, renewable, just sustainability. It's just, why is this a discussion? This guy 10x the company. I bought my car weeks after I thought this company, or I was hearing that this company could go bankrupt when they were trying to ramp to 5,000 vehicles. So I'm not an early investor. I mean, early investor, I don't know, is in 2018 considered an early investor, but it's just one of those things where this is now a political debate versus, what has this person accomplished? But I think going back to that, it's all I can say is go and vote. If you have shares, even if you disagree, whatever, just go vote. We need all the voices to be heard. And don't assume that, just because you have 1 share, 10 shares. I mean, I had to email, my broker just to ask, hey, I never get notifications. How do I get it? And then I randomly get an email because I asked for it. So go do the work. It takes 10 minutes. Hopefully you don't get on those long wait phone calls, but just reach out to wherever you have your Tesla stock. If it's split up, make sure everything is accounted for. It's just, I don't know. Any other thoughts on this? Otherwise we can move on.
No, I think you hit it.
Yeah.
Deal's a deal.
Yeah. I think the last thing I would say is that, Joe and I we were talking about, is this going to be kind of seen as like the Apple, where it's like, Steve Jobs gets kicked out and then he kind of comes back a certain amount of years later? Or I've even had people tell me, oh, this is the Steve Jobs when he died and then Tim Cook came in, where, if they really pick a good, new CEO, they'll be fine. But yeah, it's just, that becomes the question. And Jeff, you nailed it, where what do you see on the other side? What does success look like to you? And more importantly, who would that person be if they're not internal? I mean, I thought it was either going to be Tom or Drew. Drew's gone. And who knows, maybe he comes back after this vote and takes over. I don't know. Tom's, I think, been deployed back out to China, just given some of the stuff going on over there. So those are the people that I would think, but even then, I don't think that they would accomplish what Elon can accomplish in the next couple of years. So that's the big question, is what do you see on the other side? Even if you don't like where Elon is politically, what do you see on the other side for this company? And, and hopefully you're giving an answer as a shareholder, not as just, just because we need everyone's vote right now. So, all right, well, this was pretty fast. I was not expecting Cybertruck to just inch to dominance like that fast, right? So Cybertruck inches closer to EV truck dominance in the month of March. And again, who knows what April is, let alone what March is. I would assume probably by now, especially with the 3,000 sold vehicles that the Ford is doing, I would assume that they've passed that. But what are your thoughts on this? Was this not necessarily even faster than what you expected? But did you think it? Yeah, I guess that is part of the question. Did we think that they were going to become the EV truck leader this quick?
I can tell you honestly that I didn't think so, because my initial thoughts on Tesla even entering this segment was they don't have to dominate it. Tesla doesn't need to dominate everything. They don't have a 500-mile range vehicle, and Lucid does, and you know what I mean. And you have like the quad motors and all that with Rivian and you know what I mean. Like, so I didn't think they needed to dominate this segment. I don't think it's necessary. Like Tesla's success doesn't depend on others' failures in that type of mindset is what I was thinking. But it's just wild that they enter a segment and they just like take it over. Like it does, they don't even have to. You know what I mean? Like there's Tundras. I saw somebody driving a freaking Santa Cruz. Like that thing is weird. Like I don't even like it's just a weird looking truck. So I mean, but people buy what people buy. So I just think it's pretty interesting that they can inch closer. And those registrations are kind of bizarre because yeah, I mean, you can just see the lineup. I mean, the trucks are just coming. Like there was 200 in Chicago. I know Jeff's like interested to see who's got 200 in Chicago. But yeah, I mean, that's just like
That's a
the next
sore
month is going
spot.
to be very interesting to see what the results are.
Yeah, and I actually had them passing them individually. So passing individually Rivian and Ford like in the second or third quarter, and by the end of the year, Cybertruck will pass them both combined. And I think they actually could sell over 100,000 Foundation Series if they opened it up globally. I think they could easily. And what does that mean for Tesla? That allows them to ramp up their factory and get their factory to peak run rate, where right now the speed of the product through the line and the yield of the product, meaning how many are input versus how many come out at various stages, are they're it's easy to say that they're all below where Tesla would want to be in terms of their terminal run rate. So as they're approaching that terminal run rate in terms of speed and yield, they can use this Foundation Series to help take off that cost burden, because the vehicle's roughly $20,000 more, and there's some additional parts that they're giving, but it's nowhere near the $20,000 range. So I like what they're doing. I like how they're ramping. I think the first quarter was fine. As you can see, there were a couple of quality issues to work through. There always are quality issues. There's always a top five list, and especially when you're doing something brand new electrical architecture, brand new mechanical architecture, brand new manufacturing architecture, you're going to run into issues. And so the best thing for Tesla would be like, okay, I only have 3,000 to 5,000 trucks out there. If I have to deal with an issue, I've got it contained, and I've got a manageable fleet to look at and look at data from. So I love the way that they're ramping. I think they're really going to start accelerating from here. And I think that, like I said, the Foundation Series, I think they could do 100,000 globally if they opened it up. I think in the U.S., they could easily do, well north of where they're at. And, I, so yeah, I think by the end of the year, they're going to be the leading EV truck. Silverado just started shipping from GM. It's got some pretty good specs. We have no idea what their production volume looks like, but it's also pretty pricey. The first trim is also pretty pricey on the Silverado as well. So,
What's the
yeah,
price?
there's competition.
The starting price?
There's a couple of versions. I know one is upwards of like 108 on the
Yeah.
Silverado, and then I think there's one
In the
below it.
90s, right?
But it's and they're doing well in range. But again, it kind of looks like the conventional truck, and there's a lot of people that want that. So, but I think Tesla will outsell all of them individually, probably by the end of this quarter, if not the third quarter, and then all of them combined by the fourth quarter. Remember, they have to get the demand side right, and they have to get the supply side right. Tesla has the demand side locked. Like, there's tremendous demand for this product, and they're in a great position to get the supply side of it in good shape. So it's just a different dynamic. Rivian's in their third year of production, and unfortunately, I like Rivian. They're losing $40,000 per truck in year number 3 of production. and Cybertruck's in its arguably within its first 5 to 6 months of production. So I think in that 12 to 18 month point, they'll break even, and then you have to look at the GM version. How long will it take them to break even? It's this awkward race of like, how many do you want to build? You got to build more. You got to get your velocity and rate up, but then you're also accelerating your losses while you try to get to a break even point. So that's why this whole thing is interesting. But Tesla's got a really good spot with the Cybertruck because I think globally the demand is very, very strong.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, I think I do think that this truck. I can honestly say that outside of blowing up the truck at this point, like I have pretty much been involved in anything. Again, I'm not saying I've taken it to the max on certain things, right? Like off-roading, was I going through, what is it like, some of these crazy places in Utah? Like, no, but like I've definitely, I've owned a truck before. I've been able to pretty much put it to the test on everything. I mean, Joe and I literally, we're slowly going to be releasing footage. I'll put out another video today, but we were able to test a Cybertruck door against a flamethrower, against a saw, against a pickaxe, an axe, a sledgehammer, a 9mm gun, and a 22mm gun as well. And this thing, again, whatever you want to call it, it is built tough. The capabilities of it with 17-inch ground clearance is unmatched by any standard truck. The truck, in my opinion, it drives, and Joe, you would actually probably know best because you own a Model Y, but like this truck drives very efficiently, especially if you have the foundation or if you have the original rims and tires on it. It definitely feels like it drives a lot better than my Model X as far as the ride quality and the range, or if not equivalent, especially with my new Model X. But I think it's going to be one of those things where at least the things that I've seen on, not less so on X, just because our following is just all Tesla enthusiasts, but the algorithm feeds. The algorithm feeds a lot of non-Tesla owners on some of these other platforms. And again, I see all these like Model 3, Model Y hate comments that are very similar from back in 6-7 years ago on the truck. And so I think it's going to become one of those things. It's just going to be butts and seats for people to realize what this truck is capable of doing, So, all right, some other updates. Model 3 performance increased by $1,000, so it's now $54,990. So Tesla's also increased the price of the wide interior by $500 for the Model 3 rear-wheel drive and long range. But I think I was shocked that the Model 3 performance is actually eligible for the tax credit, which that puts this vehicle at what, 47,000, 48,000. And I mean, there is no other car at this price that can beat out these specs. I mean, so I was shocked, and the thing, in my opinion, I'm glad that they actually changed like the fascia on the front and the back, and then they had the red calipers and the rims. Because I think the old Model 3 performance just had the wing and pretty much was the same, right, outside of the calipers. So they really have done an amazing job. And the Model 3 is probably the best, I would say, outside of the Cybertruck. I mean, I'm just saying, it's their latest product, obviously, outside of the truck. But they did an amazing job with the build quality on this. So, but yeah, they increased it this past week. I mean, this is all new stuff. I mean, this is just typical stuff that Tesla does, right? As they're moving through the months. But I just thought this was interesting.
Well, because the Model 3 performance, like you say, for you to get this type of performance, you're going to need to buy a Porsche. You're going to need to spend a minimum of 100,000. Like even like the BMW, M3 series and competition series and all that are like well above, like double the price, if not more. So for you to end up with 47,000, you can smoke anything out there. Like that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I think you hit it. I think it's this value per dollar. You're not, I mean, under $50,000, you're getting under 0 to 6, under 3 seconds for 0 to 60. And it's interesting when you look at the Model 3 performance or the new Model 3 on the website. It doesn't look extremely different than the old Model 3, but when you actually see it in person, you could spot it in a second that it's a different vehicle. And what they did with both the rear and the front and the seats, I mean, this is a really solid upgrade. And the fact that they're increasing price, I still think they're struggling with some supply issues. And there's also, I would say, I mean, it looks like, depending on where the batteries are coming from, I have to look at the performance again. I know for the rear-wheel drive, if they're importing LFPs, those tariffs are going up. If those batteries are made outside of a favored nation in terms of sourcing. So I could see that, scooting up a little bit with those tariffs moving up. But in this case, I do think there's a combination of high demand and they're still working through some supply issues on the performance, but just a great value. And it's still, it still gets the tax credit too. So just a great product.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to be definitely the best bang for buck, especially if you want a smaller car, like performance, and also still get the 4-door sedan utility. It is bigger than an M3, so you still, get that extra room, and you get that room of like probably similar to a Honda Accord. Maybe it's a little bit less in size, but it's definitely still there. One other thing that was shared this week, and I'm going to share the video. So a Tesla Semi driver can control the truck using the app, just like any other Tesla. So I thought I'm going to share the first like 30 to 40 seconds. So this is from YouTube. I'm probably going to say the name wrong, but the source is John Wagaboo. I think so. It's John W. So if you search John W. Semi, you will probably find this video. So crediting him, but let's just take a quick look.
Right? Yep, you decided everything on the phone. Everything's right there. Start, defrost, flashers, the whole thing.
Wow.
Man.
So that's the only part that I'm going to show. But I think I've personally been inside this truck, and the fact that I'd never seen the app, but the truck is obviously built very with Tesla simplicity all the way through it. They don't have a sleeper, so I think that's been one of the biggest complaints. But outside of that, I mean, if this truck is doing daily trips and drop-offs, and that's probably what it's built for, is just so. But it's just crazy to think it's built in very Tesla fashion. You can pretty much control the whole car from the Tesla app. So it'll be crazy to see, summon on this thing, or potentially just being able to back it up. Because or even potentially like auto unload as far as the tow hitch. I mean, again, I don't know all the capabilities, but it is pretty cool to see how this was just completely operatable from the app.
Yeah, I think one of the cool things is that, like, most drivers would have to leave it running, and but now you can just turn on the heater, defrost it from wherever they are, eat inside of a restaurant, and then come out to a warm truck. My mom used to drive diesels, so like it's wild to see, and she was a long hauler, so she had a sleeper and everything. But if you've seen this truck, you see it and you look at the back of it, it has the room. It's not that it doesn't have it. It's just that they haven't tailor-made those versions yet. But I'm pretty sure that's coming. But man, that's a benefit and a half to be able to adjust your temperature controls from the vehicle, not even including like all the other stuff you're talking about.
Yeah, I think when they get this charger, so this truck is awaiting infrastructure, both a factory to build it and the charging infrastructure to charge at a very high rate along these major trucking routes. And federal government's involved in that because they like to see more electric, vehicle transport, especially in in hauling materials, trucking, and so I this is a couple of years obviously in the making. This truck was unveiled in 2017, and I think when you're bringing out a new category of product and you're trying to do it in a meaningful way, you're not just trying to get 100, 200 out there and say you're done. You've got to work on all these underlying things, which is like, how do you build this thing at scale at the right cost structure? Because this is a large product and there's a lot of complexity involved. And then how do you get the efficiencies right? How do you get the charging infrastructure right? And you want the whole thing in place. And once all this is in place, I mean, Tesla's in a really good position to scale on this truck. And just the final thing I'll say is I went to the unveiling event for the truck, and they had a number of the engineers there, and they're very excited about it. And one of the engineers I spoke with was around engineering the seat. And if you've ever sat in this truck, it's like on a cloud. Like it's the most comfortable seat Tesla's ever made. And there's a lot of innovation involved in doing that. And I think it's a great product, and I'm looking forward to it, scaling over the next couple. It looks like by the end of this year, they're going to start some level of production and really ramp in the following year. And there's, the factory expansion in Nevada to support that.
Yeah, it is really exciting. I mean, I'm personally really excited for this product, just because I know how much it'll impact the industry and how much of these roads and trails, like especially in specific geographies, like whether it's California or some of these big states just with tons of transportation happening. I really think it's just going to turn all of that upside down. And because of, again, why do you buy a Tesla? It's just because of the maintenance cost, and ultimately even performance capabilities, all that stuff that you get with a Tesla. So, I'm personally, again, really, really excited and pumped about this. All right, wrong. Okay, nope, this one. Okay, so I'll pass this one to Joe.
Yeah, I thought this was very interesting because Omar makes a comment about AI taking off at an insane pace, and Elon's like chiming in, like, yeah, you're seeing it everywhere, and then just happens to mention like, like the next version of FSD, and then you have we got to have him on MDR, but then MDR mentions like, hey, well, when does that come to the Cybertruck, and he says, with 12.5. So I think that there's a lot happening in this entire conversation, but for some takeaways, I think it's very interesting that Elon is looking at FSD as more AI than just being, the full self-driving suite that it is, and also the fact that it's coming to the freaking Cybertruck, and that's late June, so that's like next month. So Jeff, you might end up with a Cybertruck that can drive itself, man.
Yeah, I'll start with the Cybertruck. I'd be very appreciative of that. What's exciting here is the scale that's actually happening. So if we get a 5 to 10x improvement to 12.4, if we get another 5 to 10x with 12.5, now you're talking about it's multiplicative. It's 25 to 100 times improvement. So this will be interesting to experience, because I think all of us have individual experiences based on the geographies we live in, and like our routes and like what we're actually, putting the vehicle through. For me, it's pretty clear. I went from V11 to V12 when I was probably doing 10 to 30% of my rides on FSD, to now I'm doing greater than 90% of my rides on FSD. And it's changed my experience of owning a vehicle and driving. Like if I'm going from point A to point B, I'm not as tired, or if I am tired, I feel like I can drive longer distances. You still have to pay attention, obviously. But this is, you know, this really changes things. And I would say that the exposure to this is really, really, really small. I'm still, bringing people in my car that have never seen this steering wheel like turn by itself, have never seen a car do this on city streets. They're used to lane keeping on highways, but they're not used to just saying, "Hey, take me home," and the car, like wherever you're at, just starts. Boom, your final address pops up and it just goes. So this 12.4 to 12.5 ramp is interesting. If they do a major point release every month, so we're at 12.6, 12.7, maybe 12.8 by 8.8. I mean, you just start thinking through the level of improvement, and then this, because everything's operating on a lag right now. Like the release we're driving on right now with this 12.3.x series was probably trained in the first quarter of this year. And Elon did say that the 12.4 is on new models, and he recently said, I think in March or April, that they are not training, they're not compute constrained anymore. So a lot of these things are falling into place. So when they do a build and they run their own internal kind of unit testing, system level testing, and then they have their own drive testing routes, they do things that basically to get a lot of data in a very short period of time. Now, there is some correlation factor between them getting that internal data and then the fleet having it and seeing how they experience it. And that's why you see some of these point releases. But it's going to be exciting to see on their internal indicators, they're seeing what they believe will extrapolate to a 5 to 10x improvement in drive testing. So it'll be interesting to see how we experience that. And if it's really on this pace, it's going to be super exciting. And they're adding features, right? So the ability for the vehicle to go into reverse, to do 3-point turns. So this is very exciting, not only for just Tesla vehicles, but just for AI and autonomy in general, because this to me it's like we're reaching, I think with version 12, this is kind of a ChatGPT moment for real world AI, like devices that can move through the real world.
Yeah, I mean, AI is changing so fast, and even specifically with what you were saying, right? I think, especially with them releasing FSD trials and the amount of data that this company will be receiving or has received, especially as these trials are running out, it's going to be next level. And I would say too, like more and more of my drives are becoming FSD as well, especially when I'm taking my Model X, even with my family too. So my main driver still is the Cybertruck, which I am waiting for hopefully the end of June, 12.5 it sounds like, but yeah, it's gonna be I think again this FSD will look a lot different and by the end of the year, if not. I mean, we're seeing it in every update that we're doing, and it's exponential every single time just because of the amount of data that's just coming in. New Tesla store in Japan, Minato, Mirai. Again, I'm probably saying that wrong. So, and then one other thing, huge update to the Tesla diner. This is going to be, once this thing is complete, this is going to be a place worth visiting. It's kind of like Kettleman City. I mean, you really, this is going to be probably the coolest experience as a Tesla owner, to just, call it your own. You get access to it by being a Tesla owner. Obviously, I don't know if it's going to be open to the public or how they're going to handle all of that, but it should be an exciting as this comes out. One thing I wanted to get, this was interesting. So Elon just dropping some dimes here. The 2% FSD take rate is not correct. So if it was far off, Elon probably would have commented on it. If they say nothing, it's probably not far off. So of course, Elon saw that and he's commenting, the take rate is much higher than 2%, please. He's like, I don't comment on everything as sometimes I don't see it, and commenting on everything makes it easy to fish for information. So this was huge. So first off, if anyone wants to give, what their assumption was on the take rate of FSD, was this him alluding to it's a lot higher? Again, that could mean 8%, that could mean 10%. Is this was 2% even what you thought, or is it is something closer to 8 to 10% more of what you had in mind?
I didn't really have a guess either way, because FSD take rate is one of those things that is along the lines of Optimus, right? You love to see it in movies, and people love sci-fi movies, but once it becomes reality, it kind of scares people. Like I took my family out over the holidays on the FSD trial, and everybody was like giggling and stuff, and you know what I mean? And I'm just like, see, I told you it's possible. And they're like, man, I would never, you know what I mean? It's just like, so I think the take rate is one thing, but people actually putting it in practicality is another. So I never really thought about the take rate. I think that's just one of those things it's inevitable. Like, you know what I mean? People didn't like seatbelts. There's so many videos of all the people who were fighting against seatbelts being implemented in vehicles. I mean, this is like one of the safest things that could possibly happen to vehicle driving, and people are like kind of against it. They think they literally drive better than a robot. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a wild time.
Yeah, I agree with Joe. But I think this Yipit data. I think there's some people talking past each other. By the way, I don't know if the data is correct or not. I'm very suspicious of external sources commenting on take rate or an improvement. But I believe what Yipit was saying is that in the trial, the people that entered the trial without FSD and came out adding FSD was an incremental 2%. Not that the total take rate is 2% on FSD. So I think it's important to clarify that. I don't know where they get to, by the way, I've been on record saying do not trust these external sources unless you understand exactly how they're getting this data, and if it's really, if you kind of put it, if you kind of pressure test it, it can be really accurate. I would trust Tesla when they comment on the take rate data on the earnings calls. That's where I go off. I think some of these surveys and approaches can be interesting, but I think you can poke holes in them pretty quickly. But here's to me, the highest order bit is Tesla believes that they have a release that's 5 to 10x better in probably the most important metric of using this system, which is, do you have to intervene or not? And the fact that they can calculate and see 5 to 10x improvement tells me that that is the highest order bit actually, and not what was the take rate on the releases that were prior to that, meaning like there's something coming that's going to be many, many times better. It's going to be more important to actually understand user behavior on these newer releases actually than the prior releases. So that's what I would be looking for. And I think it's two really important things. And one is like how many people subscribe and use the service. But the other thing is if you've subscribed and you're using the service, what percent of your drive time or miles are using FSD or not? That to me is the important trend to understand. Is the system improving, and is it user perceivable, and it's something that consumers want to use? And that's been the biggest metric for me going from V11 to V12 is the percent of my driving, or the percent of miles I use on FSD versus not, is grown dramatically. So I think that's the important metric. And I think there's some people talking past each other with this. Yeah, the take rate's higher than 2%, but I think what Yipit was saying was that it's 2% incremental from before the trial. I don't know what's happening. I would wait to see. By the way, that Yipit data came out, I think, in the third week of the trial, the second or third week of the trial. So the trial has to go. There's still people adding. By the way, I think a large percentage of vehicles were not able to be upgraded. They were on that branch that was not able to take FSD until recently. So there's a lot of noise in this data. Let that get cleaned out. Let Tesla get to this newer release with better performance, and I'd love to see the rebaseline.
Yeah, no, I think so. Thank you for that, Jeff, for that helpful context. So me just not going all the way in knew that. So thank you for giving that context. So I think we're getting close to the top of the hour, but I think some of the other big things that I wanted to just quickly call out was something that broke yesterday was Tesla is allowed to expand its industrial site with Giga Berlin. So this is a big deal, especially just given all the stuff going on in Germany right now with Tesla, specifically with the protesters and some of the other stuff going on. So I thought that this was a nice win for them to continue to just expand and build, because I don't think that they should be. This is something they're investing billions of dollars into the economy, hiring tens of thousands of workers there. And so they need the support from the government as much as possible to continue to make an impact there and really, help Europe, make this transition, as they're obviously further ahead in some of this stuff.
Well, there's a lot happening with this. Like, not only is this approved marginally, but also the agreement that Tesla made was that they will not do some other reforestation project. So they're going to actually end up pulling back from tearing down some of the forests because of what they're able to do with this. Now, a lot of that also plays into the fact that, like, Grunheide ended up releasing a video about how much water they save and that they recycle almost 100% of it. So they're using way less water than most the industry uses, which I think is like something like 3%, and Tesla's like at 1 point something. So yeah, like there's a lot that happened that plays into this, and the fact that they're saving water way less than the other companies, and you have these protests about the water and stuff, but now there's going to be less deforestation, which is just a cardboard forest anyways, but there's going to be less of the trees taken down with what they're going to be able to do with this new deal that they're hashing out.
I'll just say briefly, employing people in your municipality or county or area drives up tax revenue. Tax revenue is good for these municipalities, so they should. I'm not surprised that they approved Tesla expanding, because it would drive more revenue for them, and Tesla's a good corporate citizen for that. But I mean, and I know Tesla's doing. Nobody needs to tell Tesla what to do, but they should be extracting even greater security guarantees for that perimeter and in tax benefits if they have to bring their factories down for any reason, for anything related to that municipality. Like, they should be extracting benefits from that. I'm sure they are. I think they're operating really well here, but they should want Tesla to expand, because it's going to drive more employment and more revenues, and they'll just drive that circular economy. So I'm not surprised to see it, and I think Tesla should be extracting benefits from this.
Definitely. Yeah, it's going to be, it was interesting, because I think if you watched, I think Tesla also put out a video too about, like, I think the actual water towers that they have, it's like Ninja Turtles or something like that. Just because, Ninja Turtles literally would go down those tunnels and stuff. But I thought that was interesting. But closing remarks, make sure you vote. That's one thing you could probably take away from this whole thing that this whole episode, is make sure your voice is heard, along with obviously a bunch of other important updates. So make sure you vote, contact your broker, make sure every share is accounted for, because specifically Alexandra was calling out that we need 50% vote to move from Delaware to Texas. And then the last one is the takeover. I know everyone, including Alexandra, we will all be on the panel in various panel discussions talking about amazing aspects of Tesla. We'll also be even diving into SpaceX. with some amazing influencers from that space as well. So make sure you go to xtakeover.com, July 27th through the 28th in San Luis Obispo, California. And if you're in Europe, check out TeslaTakeoverEurope.com. We're there in Flachau, Austria next week. It should be an amazing time. But this summer's going to be pretty busy, but a lot of stuff, good things going on. So we would love to see you there. Please purchase tickets, and we hope to see your face there, and make sure you say hi. So outside of that, thank you again. Make sure you patronize Jeff and Joe. Give them a follow for just all of their knowledge, along with Alexandra, for all the work that she has been doing and continues to do on the voting. And we will see you all not next week. So I just want to be clear, we are not here next week. I will be in Austria with Alexandra, but we will meet the following week. I believe that is going to be the next episode will be May 31st. So we will see you then. Have a great week, everyone.